and the pledge will be led by Commissioner Derryberry. So if you would all please stand.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come together again in service of our great city. Lord, we ask that you would bless those who are not in attendance, continue to cover Commissioner Moore as well. Ask that you would bless everyone in attendance today. Thank you that they arrived safely, and they arrived home safely. I pray that we will be able to discuss the future of our great city and great things to come. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Place your hand over your heart, face the flag, and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Another roll call, please.
Chairman Vos,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Harvey,
Present.
Commissioner Burden,
Present.
Commissioner Derryberry,
present.
Commissioners Moore, Tufts, and Underwood are absent. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Hope folks aren't ill tonight, our missing colleagues, anyway. First action item tonight, well, before we begin that portion of the agenda, this is called Public Business from the Floor, and this is an opportunity where members of the public will have an opportunity to address the commission for 3 minutes on action items, and when those action items are called, we'll call upon you, should you fill out a speaker's card and place it in the nifty little plastic box here on my left, your right, on the end of the podium. Applicants also will have an opportunity to speak to us if they care to address us relative to their projects. First action item tonight is approval of the minutes of our special meeting of January 29th, or excuse me, January 9th, 29th. I don't think there is a 29th, is there? 2023, good grief. So, may I have a motion, please?
Jim, I'll move to approve.
Thank you.
I second.
Thank you. All right, any further? Please vote. Motion passes 4-0 with 3 members absent. We have 2 public hearings tonight. The first public hearing is regarding tentative tract map number 83554. So without objection, the public hearing is open on this matter. For the record, we have received an uncontested letter from the applicant wherein they indicate they are in agreement with the recommendations of staff. We also received an email, or staff received an email, which was forwarded to us today from a neighbor, David Wright, who raised his concerns relative to not having any more homes built next to his house for various reasons in Quartz Hill. Actually, Mr. Wright, you live in Lancaster. So, for the record, those items are identified. Ms. Campana, you're presenting on this tonight?
Yes.
Please proceed. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Vos, members of the Planning Commission. This item before you is tentative tract map number 83554. The proposed project is located east of 60th Street West and south of Avenue K8. The proposed project is for the subdivision of 5 acres into 18 single-family residential lots. The proposed project is consistent with the general plan, complies with the Lancaster Municipal Code. In conclusion, staff recommends that Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2303, approving tentative tract map number 83554 and adopting a mitigated negative declaration. That concludes staff's presentation. Staff and the applicant are here for any questions.
All right, thank you. Do we have any speakers' cards on this item?
No speakers on this item.
None. All right. Members, you have any questions or comments? No? All right, the applicant certainly is welcome to talk to us if they'd like, but you're not obliged to if you choose not to. You're welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Vose and Commissioners. My name is Imad Abujawra. I am with Civil Design and Drafting. We are the applicant for this project. Special thanks to the staff for working with us in the past 2 years through all the challenges and giving us this opportunity to get in front of you and present our project. I'm here to answer any questions. Otherwise, we kindly request that you approve our project.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, may I have a motion, please, on this item? Oh, got to close the public hearing first. Okay, the public hearing is closed. Now we can have a motion.
I'll move that we adopt resolution number 23-03 approving tentative tract map number 83554 to allow for the subdivision of 5 gross acres into 18 single-family residential lots in the R7000 zone and adopting a mitigated negative declaration.
A second?
Thank you. I caught you out of the corner of my eye, giving me the evil eye, Ms. Corbett. I failed to close the public hearing, as I typically do. I got it. Thank you. All right, anything further from members? Questions, comments, issues? All right, then, it's been moved and seconded. Please vote. Motion passes 4-0 with 3 members absent. Good luck with the project. Thank you. The next item is also a new public hearing, so without objection, the public hearing is open on conditional use permit number 22-12. This is an application from AT&T Mobile. Ms. Alvarado, you presenting?
I am. Good evening, Chairman Vose and members of the Planning Commission. The item we have before you this evening is Conditional Use Permit 2212, which is a request to allow for the construction of a new 55-foot tall stealth wireless communications facility, including a 710 square foot equipment enclosure located near the northwest corner of 50th Street West and Avenue K in the R15000 zone. So the site is currently primarily used and owned by Palm Ranch Irrigation with a utility plant on site. There is an existing 55-foot tall faux water tower concealing a Verizon cell tower with approximately a 500 square foot equipment shelter that was approved ministerially back in August 17th of 2017. So this was built with previous development and zoning standards. The proposed AT&T cell tower will be constructed approximately 95 feet west of this existing facility lease area, and will also be concealed within a faux water tower design. This one will be subject to current standards with its associated equipment completely screened within a 750 square foot block wall enclosure. The proposed project has been reviewed and found to be consistent with the general plan land use designation of urban residential and found to be compliant with all applicable development standards and guidelines. The facility would operate in compliance with the Federal Communication Commission regulations with no potential hazard to the public's health and safety. So an alternative site analysis was conducted where 2 alternative sites were not selected due to the insufficient gap coverage. Additionally, the applicant provided a statement indicating that the co-location of the existing cell tower on site would limit potential proliferation for the successful service capability. The proposed site, however, has been designated as a co-locatable facility. So, in conclusion, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 23-04 approving CUP 2212 to allow for the construction of a new 55-foot tall stealth wireless communications facility
with equipment enclosure located near the 50th Street West and Avenue K corner in the R15,000 zone. This concludes staff's presentation. I am available for any questions. I believe the applicant is here as well.
Thank you. You have speaker cards on this? No? All right.
No speakers on this matter.
Okay, thank you. Members, questions, comments?
I actually do have one question I couldn't resist. How do we define stealth with regard to this item? You know, I can't resist it out of everybody up here.
Take off your glasses and you can't see it.
Exactly. I'm just wondering, is that,
So stealth by code would technically mean that the wireless communication facility would be screened. In this case, like the existing one, be screened with what looks like a water tower on site versus just a standalone steel or metal
so it's just
facility.
blending in, is that what we're saying?
Blending in with the site, the Palm Ranch Irrigation Plant Utility Site, yeah.
Okay, just thought I'd ask. I thought it was appropriate for me to ask out of everybody. All right, thank you.
Not like the stealth you work with. Yeah, it's better than the pine trees and the palm tree configurations, that's for sure. All right, anything else, members? All right, then we'll close the public hearing without objection. Consider a motion.
Sorry. I move to adopt resolution number 23-04, approving conditional use permit number 22-12 for the construction of a new 55-foot tall stealth wireless communications facility with a 710 square foot equipment enclosure.
I second.
Thank you. All right. It's been moved and seconded. Nothing further. Please vote. Did I break it? Motion passes 4-0 with 3 members absent. All right then. So that concludes our action items this evening. We have 2 presentations tonight from staff. One is a development update by Ms. Campana, and then we'll hear about Joshua Trees and bioresource update from Ms. Swain. So, I noticed our door is closed. I guess maybe the wind got it or something, but it should be open. So, Ms. Campana, is this going to be exciting?
Yes, of course.
All right.
So I'll be presenting a development update. So 2020 was a very busy year for planning, and I'll be highlighting some commercial, housing, and industrial projects. First, I'll speak on master plans. The healthcare district was adopted last year, and within that year, we've received 2 projects. Planning approved the behavioral health facility, and in addition, we received a new project for the Antelope Valley Medical Center. On the top right is a photo sim of the behavioral health facility. Next is Parkway Village. We are in the beginning phases of this master plan. Staff is working on the boundaries for this, and we're having conversations with stakeholders like Kaiser. And the environmental will be kicking off this summer, so you guys will be seeing it again soon. Commercial projects, I'm going to highlight some of the projects that we approved and are under construction. If you're like me, you're very excited for the shopping center on 15th Street West and Avenue K. The tenants, I'm sure all of you know, but let me repeat it again because I'm excited. Sprouts, Chick-fil-A, Quick Quack, Ono Hawaiian, Taco Bell, and Dutch Bros. The pictures on the right are actually the buildings that are on the site. And if you've visited recently, you'll see that Chick-fil-A is also up. Next is the 7-Eleven on 20th Street West and Avenue J. They are currently grading. And the Chevron on 10th Street West and Avenue K8. The Mini Mart gas station is built, and then the commercial pads are going with grading right now. We are getting 2 new retail uses, Tractor Supply at 40th Street West and Avenue L, and Smart & Final on 20th Street West and Avenue J. I want to speak on 2 projects that are in planning review. There is a proposed shopping center on 30th Street West and Avenue K across the college. They are proposing 3 commercial pads. The elevation on the bottom is what it's going to look like, very similar to the shopping center on 10th Street West and Avenue K. And then on the east side of the town, we have 20th Street East and Avenue J, and we are getting a Habit Burger.
So the one across from the college is, what, the 3rd time this has been through the mill?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're getting close.
Could be a charm, huh?
Next is housing. This is a housing project with the city on Sarah Highway and Avenue I. It's H&R 1. It's 114 units, and it has duplexes and triplexes. So this project received a grant of $24.6 million for construction implementation. They're in plan check right now, and they're slated to break ground January of next year. Some other multifamily terracinas under construction on 17th Street East and Avenue J4. Emerald has 72 units at 27th Street West and Avenue K12. We have William Homes at 20th Street West and Avenue I, and that's 162 units, and Imagine Village 2 at 80 units. We have 2 mixed-use projects. We have Lancaster Promenade on the southwest corner of 20th Street West and Avenue I, across the street from William Homes. It's 392 units, and it's going to have 12,000 square feet of commercial space. And in the pipeline, we have a mixed use on 15th Street West and Avenue L. This will have, 118 units, commercial uses, and a hotel. Here's a residential summary report. So currently, we have 29 approved and active single-family tentative tract maps, 7 projects for multifamily that are approved. Currently, in planning, we have 23 maps and 3 projects under review. So in total, if you include the approved and the ones under review, we have 5,759 single-family units and 1,706 multifamily units. So we have had a high demand for warehouse and distribution facilities, and this highlights it. We have 11 site plan reviews in planning review, which is over 3 million square feet for new construction. And we are continuing to see more of these projects. Next, hydrogen, high priority for our city. We have 3 companies. We have HGH2, which you guys approved in December. Heliogen, which is expanding for research and development. And in addition, we have Element, who are looking at sites on the east side of the city. This is a snapshot of all the planning entitlements that we approved in 2022. We approved 9 conditional use permits, 210 director's review, 9 site plan reviews, 13 tentative tract maps, and 139 over-the-counter approvals. So we were very productive in 2022, and there are no signs that we're going to slow down in 2023. So we're excited for all of our new projects and the growth in the city. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
You think you're going to slow down in 2023?
No signs of slowing down.
You're not slowing down. Extraordinary. It really is. And the interesting, at least from my point of view, is the balance of development. It's not just one category, it's across the board. You're talking about building wealth, creating jobs, and creating homes and opportunities for those homeowners, both in different types of housing, as well as the opportunity to gain employment in new locations, plus the existing employers here locally. So will you be sharing that electronically with we poor commissioners?
I'll send it out.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. And post it up on the website, right?
That's definitely the plan, Chairman.
So, I know you probably don't know the answer to this, but if I was presenting, I'd have a allocation of hours spent. But I'm not presenting. But maybe somebody has kind of a broad brush idea of how many man hours, don't have any men, lady hours.
Chairman, the slides aren't large enough. They're just simply not large enough to account for all of the hours.
The numbers are so big that you couldn't get them on a sheet of paper.
That's exactly right.
I got it. Okay, perfect. I don't doubt it. Thank you, Ms. Campana.
I'm curious, where the Chick-fil-A and everything is going, they're building another Taco Bell over there? Like, there's one right there.
Yeah, apparently, the existing Taco Bell's lease on 15th is up in June. And so this is a brand new, I don't know what they're doing with the current building.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. And that 7-Eleven that's going on 20th and J, is that where the Gen Z, the T-shirt mart used to be? Is it on that
Yes.
side? Okay. All right. Thank you.
I don't know if you've been following other planning documents in the region, but a general plan and the recommended zone change components relative to commercial development has reached an approval stage wherein fast food stores cannot be sited within 500 feet of one another. Quite an interesting approach to doing business in a thriving community.
One comment, Jane. You know, I know Ms. Campagna is excited about the restaurants that are opening up, but you know what I was thinking, you know, the other committee that you and I sit on, Measure LC, I'm excited about the Smart and Final because I continue to shop at Smart and Final, but I can't leave those dollars in Lancaster. So now we'll have a Smart and Final again in Lancaster, so that's what I'm excited about. Not that anybody asked, but thought I'd weigh in.
They plan on being open by the end of the year.
I had asked this question on Measure LC about the tax revenue. Mm-hmm. And when you purchase something substantial, something like a vehicle or whatever, out of the city limits, you buy it from an agency somewhere else. Recently had an experience, and the invoice was presented, and I looked at it, and I thought, they've missed something. And then it came back a little while later and says, well, your address is in Lancaster, so the sales tax rate is 10.25 as opposed to 9.25. So it is true, the city of Lancaster does get its share.
Yes. But it's a good thing as a reminder. It's doing amazing things. I throw that plug in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Millions.
Yep.
Great revenue for our town. Ms. Swain.
Okay, so previously you had asked for an update on Joshua Trees, and we kind of expanded that to include all biological resources that can be found in the city, and what kinds of conditions or restrictions get applied to them. So I went through, biological resources have a variety of status types, from common everyday, you know, jackrabbits and bunny rabbits and other rodents, and to federally and state listed endangered and threatened species. So the first one is nesting birds. Nesting birds are protected under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, which protects all species of nesting birds, their eggs, and fledglings or baby birds, with the exception of 3 species, including European starlings and crows. Ravens are protected, surprisingly enough. Typically, development projects will have requirements for nesting bird surveys prior to the start of grading or construction. And if nesting birds are identified, the nests are required to be left undisturbed with a buffer around them of 50 to 500 feet, depending on the species. So if they're a raptor, they have a 500-foot buffer. If they're some other type of bird, they have a 50-foot buffer, and you can't disturb the nests until the birds have left. The next one are fur-bearing mammals. These are also protected, including badgers, which are these right here, coyotes, and kit foxes. Their dens, and whether they're breeding or have litters of pups, are protected. Same types of requirements. You can't disturb them until the offspring moves out. So these typically are on the far east and far west side where it's relatively undisturbed, but you may find them in the city. There was an incident with badgers under a car in the Vallarta parking lot at 20th and I, and I'm sure everybody has seen coyotes wandering in a neighborhood. I don't know if kit foxes have been in neighborhoods, but they all kind of show up at some point in time. Special status plant species, there's a variety of them in the Lancaster and Antelope Valley region, and I've shown some of the more common ones. These species don't have formal protections. However, CDFW does track impacts to them, and as their ranges get smaller, mitigation is typically required if they are present. CDFW does not have specific mitigation protocols for these species. The replacement habitat is sometimes requested. The city does mitigate these species by charging a fee that is higher than our biological impact fee, which we then use to acquire habitat that has these same species on it. Next one, special status animals. Obviously, I think everybody is familiar with the burrowing owls that are shown on the left. The other 2 special status animals that we have in the city are silvery legless lizards and coast horned lizards. These species have special survey protocols that go with them, and there's special mitigation that goes with all of those species. If burrowing owls are found during a protocol survey, you either have to leave them alone, you can relocate them. In certain circumstances, you can evict them from their burrows. And in some instances, you have to replace habitat for them. There's no specific mitigation for the 2 reptile species. Most of the time, if you find them, you just move them to a neighboring site. California endangered species. We have 3 threatened species here in the city limits of Lancaster: the Mojave ground squirrel, the tricolored blackbird, and the Swainson's hawk. The Mojave ground squirrel is typically found on the east side and can only be determined to be present through trapping that occurs between March and June. Tricolored blackbirds nest in grassland areas that are close to water, and Swainson's hawks typically nest in cliffs or large trees, but near agricultural fields. That's their preferred hunting habitat. If you have either of these 3 species, you are required to get an incidental take permit through the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, which includes mitigating for any impacts to them, typically through the acquisition of appropriate habitat. There are 2 federally listed species. One is the desert tortoise and one is the least Belvario. The desert tortoise If you're going to find them at all in Lancaster, are going to be on the far east side, closer to Edwards Air Force Base, Little Rock, as you get out into San Bernardino and Riverside County. There has not been a desert tortoise found in the city limits since the 90s. Leaseville vireo is both state and federally threatened. We've had one incident of them in the city limits of Lancaster. It was found in the Caltrans Basin. It was considered lost because it's not generally appropriate habitat. A safe harbors agreement was done for that. But if you were to find them on any of these species on your project site, you would need to get a Section 10 permit from the Fish and Wildlife Service, which is a more involved, complicated process than getting a take permit through CDFW. And then we have candidate species. Joshua trees are one of 3 candidate species. The Fish and Game Commission listed it as a candidate species in September of 2020. CDFW went through a series of studies, and in June of 2022, there was extensive hearings on whether or not to list the species. They continued the hearing to August of 2022 to get additional input from tribal governments. In August of 2022, they continued it to February of 23 to do additional consultation with tribal governments. And last week on February 8th, they continued the hearing indefinitely, pending the outcome of a bill that's been introduced by Governor Newsom called the Joshua Tree Conservation Act, which essentially includes a lot of the same things that listing would do, but not as a formal listing. It would be a bill that everybody would be required to comply with. Until the outcome of that bill and the requirements of the bill, if adopted, get enacted, the tree is considered a candidate species and gets all of the protections of a listed species under the California Endangered Species Act, which means if you trim it, move it, take it out, you need a take permit from CDFW. And then there are 2 other species. One is the mountain lion, which occasionally visits the city but doesn't generally live here. And the other is one of 4 bumblebee species that this state has listed as a candidate species, with the hearings anticipated to be heard in about 15 months before the Fish and Game Commission. Until such time, if you have a mountain lion den on your property, or if you find the bee on your property, you would also need a take permit. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
There won't be some.
He's looking at me because of the Joshua tree. You know, maybe I'm perhaps the only person that thought this. I thought for years that the Joshua tree was protected. I think most of the citizens here think that there's a fine that has, that you'll...
It was and it wasn't. So in theory, it's protected under the California Desert Native Plant Protection Act. Some jurisdictions have specific requirements for Joshua trees. So Palmdale had very specific, must leave so many on site, must transplant so many. Lancaster did not. Lancaster has used their biological impact fee to replace and preserve habitat that's common throughout the Antelope Valley instead of having specific requirements to the Joshua tree itself. But that is now changing.
It's good to hear. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So you talked about the bill, and if I understood you correctly, you said that the governor presented the bill, so it doesn't have a sponsor yet?
That is correct. The governor introduced it February 3rd. It's unbacked.
But he can't introduce legislation.
Correct. And so they are waiting for something to happen with it before they have the hearing.
See, I guess he didn't read the California Constitution or something. I mean, okay.
Might not have been the first time.
Yeah. This week, all right? So ravens are raptors and crows aren't? Is that how this goes?
So both are considered raptors, but the Migratory Bird Treaty Act specifically excludes crows from consideration. Technically, there's a difference between a crow and a raven, but don't ask me what it is.
The beak.
Okay, I will take your word on that.
Ones are straight and the others are more hooked like a true raven, or like a true raptor.
Okay. But crows are not protected and ravens are.
Yeah, interesting. So if you've got a lot of them, they're not protected, but if you have a few, they might be, or probably are, relatively speaking. Like the little, whatever it was called. Well, roadrunner, for instance, there's not a lot of those around.
Yes, but they're not a listed species. They're
Just a bird. Just
a bird. Yeah. They don't have specific.
Wile E. Coyote is forever after them, that's for sure, yeah.
Oh, I didn't put them on the same screen.
So, just as a anecdotal comment, I guess, would it be in our city's best interest to see if we can ask a friendly legislator to maybe sponsor that bill or co-sponsor it with others and move this thing along so we can have an ultimate solution that makes some sort of sense with how you harvest these Joshua trees compared to what we've got now?
Yes, that does make sense. This particular bill, however, does require that CDFW create a habitat or a Joshua tree conservation plan in conjunction with cities, counties, tribal entities, and the public by December of 2024. I don't know how realistic that date is, and ultimately with approval by the Fish and Game Commission by June 30th of 2025. Given past experiences and having CDFW and municipalities and counties try and create a habitat conservation plan, it's taken a much longer period of time.
Oh, you've got a large number of cities in the state that haven't even got an approved housing element, let alone one. And that's a legislative compliance system, right? Cities are obliged to have them by law with no teeth in it. So for instance, let's just say we have a shopping center or industrial development or a housing development with, worth 800 jobs and it has one Joshua tree on it. The process is the application process, the analysis and study, whatever those elements take, and then submittal, review, comment, counter comment, on and on and on. A year and a half later, you might get a permit to move them?
So from the date you submit your application for an IT permit, once CDFW deems it complete, they have 90 days to issue you the permit.
That's a key word, though, isn't it? Once they deem them complete.
Correct, and they have a very specific list of what is required for that permit. They can ask for a 30-day extension beyond that original 90 days, and after that 30-day extension, they are required by law to issue you a draft take permit. There has been a developer not in this city who has successfully used that and gotten their take permits within 120 days.
But the prep time took how long?
That I don't have a good answer for you, but they have their take permit now, and it only became a requirement in September of 2020.
And they just got it?
They got it about 6 months ago.
Let's see, September of 2020, 6 months ago would have been September of 22. So
I don't know when they filed for it.
So the 90 days plus 30 seems to have stretched a little.
No, I don't know when they actually filed for the take permit. But from the day they filed it and it was deemed complete, they got their take permit in 120 days. But you have to have a developer who is going to be very, very involved.
It'd be interesting to just understand what all the real steps are that are currently necessary to go through the process. Because if it's going to be a legislative solution, then they ought to be as well informed on the reality of of what happens in the marketplace. I would think. If you're going to vote for something, you ought to be fairly well informed.
Yeah, it appears that all of the requirements that are currently required for the Joshua Tree as part of the take permit have been rolled up into this bill. So this would be a legislative adoption of, instead of a listing, but the same requirements.
And no idea what would happen in the interim.
Until this Fish and Game Commission actually votes to list or not list, they're considered a candidate species and afforded full protection.
2025 or longer. Thanks. Anyone else? I missed it. It's now 5:42. I said 5:41. Missed it by a minute. But we started a minute later. Now, wait a minute. Does that count? I think it does. All right, then we are done with the action items and reports. Now is the time for public business from the floor. No, don't have any. Director's comments. Ms. De La Cruz?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Forgive me, I lost my voice, so I sound like I'm a good singer, and I'm not. But I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge Mr. Jeff Hogan, our Development Services Director. He is officially retiring, and this is his last week with the city. He has been with the city of Lancaster for about 8 years as the Development Services Director, spearheading and being the lead over this section: planning, public works, economic development, capital programs, utilities, transportation. I think I've captured all of the divisions. If I left one out, forgive me. But he's done a phenomenal job in being the city's Development Services Director, and we're going to miss him. But now he can commit to full-time gardening, which is a true passion of his. He's in city of Santa Clarita. He lives down there, so if you're in the area and you see him at the local Lowe's, just say hello and wish him congratulations. But I wanted to end the evening and just recognize his commitment to the city and to all that he's done for local government over the last 20-plus years. So that's all I have this evening.
So will there be an event acknowledging his retirement? Do we know?
There will not be an event. Mr. Hogan is incredibly private and does not like the spotlight. So there is no event other than simply an acknowledgement and thanking him for his time.
All right, thank you. All right. Members' comments, anyone? None? All right, then. So let's see. We would stand adjourned then to our regular meeting of March 20th, 2023 at 5 p.m. here in these chambers. Thank you all. Great job, ladies.